When everybody wrote Geno Smith off once again. Geno Smith 32 of 41 for 328 yards and 2 touchdowns, and Tyler Lockett bounces back, Barry, from a pretty weak week one where he was banged up as well.
He was great, 8 for 59 and 2 touchdowns. He got 50% of the team's red zone targets, 100% of the team's end zone targets. This is what he does. I always love Kevin Clark tweeted this out, but just like it's impossible for Seattle to play a normal game.
Yep.
They can't. There's always something weird that happens in a Seattle game, and this was no different. It was just kind of a crazy back and forth. But I think the positives is that concerns about Geno Smith as a viable fantasy quarterback, I think, once again, were shown up incorrect, right? He finished, as we head into Monday Night Football, he's the 7th best quarterback in fantasy this week. Tyler Lockett is a top 6 wide receiver as well. DK Metcalf had some moments as well. We're still waiting on JSN, but it was a big game from Ken Walker as well. Seattle offense is what we thought it was going to be.
Yep. Now, Geno Smith played great overall, but he had one of the worst plays I've ever seen a quarterback have, where 90 seconds to go, 3rd and 8, and they're trying to run out the clock, and he starts to run, and then he realizes there's nothing there, and then he scrambles backwards 17 yards and seems to forget that he's a quarterback who can actually throw the ball away, but he's committed to running the ball, and then he gets sacked at the 3 for a 17-yard loss.
Yeah.
That almost ended their season if they go down 0-2.
Yeah.
But anyway, outside of that, it was a very Geno Smith performance where he has that play, but then it was also brilliant outside of that. And look, this team's going to be in a lot of shootouts because that defense isn't good. But at least the offensive line was stable enough where it looked like it might not be viable. He was only sacked once, though. And so those receivers are going to be viable.
Yeah,
too.
which, by the way, given the offensive line injuries that were there coming to the game, the fact that Geno had a pretty clean pocket is great. Carolina, Giants, Bengals, Arizona. Those are the next 4 Seattle. None of those defenses scare you. Especially a home game to the Panthers, who will be traveling on a short week as they play tonight. Things should keep rolling for the Hawks.
On the Lions side of things, scary moment with David Montgomery being carted off with the thigh injury, but Dan Campbell said after the game it looks like a thigh bruise, so maybe escape the worst here, Jay, for David
Looks like it's going to be a couple weeks, though.
Yeah, so Adam Schefter reporting that earlier, just before we went on air, that David Montgomery said the injury could take, quote, a couple of weeks to heal. My expectation is assuming that's correct, so we'll see. It's rare, because usually players are like, I'll be back tomorrow, and you'll be like, your leg is broken. Literally, you know what I mean? It's literally
like Aaron Rodgers is finally back by week 12.
Like, I'm be back in week 6, and you're like, yeah. So usually players are super positive, right? Players and Pete Carroll are the two that are just like, it's flesh wound. Literally his arm's off, dude. Yeah. The old Monty Python sketch.
So
it didn't look.
Dan Campbell after the game kind of just played it off.
But Montgomery, the fact when a player, by the way, and this is a player, by the way, who traditionally has never been injured. I don't believe he's missed a game due to injury in his career. Certainly not at Chicago.
He plays through a lot of things.
He plays through a lot of tough guys. So if he's going to miss a couple of weeks, I think the natural inclination is like, Jahmyr Gibbs finally, and I do think his workload will increase, but Craig Reynolds is the guy that I think will actually take the Dave Montgomery role. Like, again, you'll see an uptick in work for Jahmyr Gibbs, but it's not all of a sudden going to be all Gibbs. I actually think it'll be Craig Reynolds that gets kind of the between the tackles, the down and dirty stuff, the in close stuff. So Craig Reynolds, we'll talk about him more tomorrow during the waiver wire show, but just heads up there.
It was a very fantasy managers on Twitter as soon as Montgomery went down and everyone's expecting the Jahmyr Gibbs explosion. It's like, no, it's going to be the Craig Reynolds show. Can Gibbs, why is this kind of, do you think? Can he not handle a 3-down workload?
He's a smaller player. I mean, he checked in under 200 pounds at the combine. He was not asked to be that guy at Alabama, and the Lions don't want him to be that guy because they think it'll cost him his effectiveness. And he led the team in targets with 9. I mean, we said this all summer. Jahmyr Gibbs, they want him to be their prime Alvin Kamara, and they're living up to that. This is what he's asked to do. 9 targets, and it was a good fantasy day for Jared Goff in this game. 100%.
So just off Gibbs, right? Targeted on 41% of his routes. He played 71% of the snaps after Dave Montgomery left, including 100% on 3rd and 4th down, and he played 1-on-1 inside the 10. Having said that, he was out there some of the time with Craig Reynolds. They had both guys out there because Craig Reynolds played 41% of the snaps after the Monty injury. 3 different plays. He was out there on the field with Jahmyr Gibbs, and I think as they practice this week and get ready for the Falcons, good matchup there. As they get ready for the Falcons this week, Detroit will probably work more in terms of, how to get Gibbs and Reynolds on the field at the same time. So Reynolds will be the guy again. He didn't do much, whatever. 3 rushes, 7 yards. He caught 1 ball. And so Gibbs will have an uptick. But, yeah, Craig Reynolds is going to be a thing. David Montgomery, 19 touches a game in the first 2 weeks of the season. That's what he was averaging. That's that role on that team.
How about Josh Reynolds in this game, though? 5 receptions.
He's a thing.
He makes the most of them. He is the thing. 2 touchdowns in this game. And same could be said for Sam Laporta, who it feels like he's going to be consistently featured in this offense as a rookie tight end. 5 catches on 6 targets for 63 yards.
Yeah, he's tied for the second most targets on the team in week 2. Josh Reynolds, to your point, 12 or more fantasy points in each of the first 2 weeks. He's going to be a thing. And again, given the matchup with Atlanta this week, you like how this Lions offense is starting to look, at least until Jameson Williams comes back, where we'll have, I think, more clarity. But, yeah, Jared Goff continues to do Jared Goff-like things.
Moving over to another thriller that I don't think a lot of people were ready for. The Giants in Arizona. The Giants had a real scare in this game. They ultimately come back, pull off the big-time comeback, but at a cost here, Jay, where Saquon Barkley leaves the game in the fourth quarter with an ankle injury. It sounds like he might have avoided the worst. It could be a sprain. We haven't officially gotten that yet, but his body language after this injury was not great.
He's going to be out a while, I think, Saquon.
They're on a short week, too.
Yeah,
by the
they're
way.
on a short week, so
That's
they're
the
not
other thing.
expecting
They're the Thursday night game at San Francisco this week.
Yeah, I would be shocked if he plays this week, but this is a ridiculous game. I mean, it was completely insane. Look, Josh Dobbs was excellent. He's probably the better quarterback in the matchup. I don't know what you read into this from a fantasy perspective. I mean, Darren Waller, who was under an injury cloud, he looked fantastic, 6 for 76 on 8 targets. But I mean, Matthew is Matt Breida. Is he the guy for you now?
I think it's going to be a mixture between him and Gary Brightwell, and they're playing San Francisco.
That's a weird, strange sentence.
Right, but I know, so I think it's ideally a situation to avoid. Again, we don't have anyone on bye, so it depends on your injury situation. Like if you had David Montgomery and you miss out on Craig Reynolds and some of the other guys, and so you may be forced to start one of those guys. So I think Breida over Brightwell. At the moment, he's the one that first got right. But I mean, like again,
how did we get here in week 2?
I mean, like
Gary Brightwell.
Like
a British actor.
Listen, Kyron Williams ran well against the Niners, so who knows? You never know. I had Daniel Jones on my love list, and I was just like, oh God, what did I do? First week, first half of the year.
They had us in the first half.
First half, I'm just like, oh God, what did I do? That was a mistake. And look, he came back, he came through. Like obviously, it's going to be a struggle on the road at San Francisco in a short week, but the fact is that that's what we expect out of Daniel Jones. You guys all mocked me for taking him as my number 2 quarterback in our show league, by the way.
We'll see Friday morning we'll have that conversation.
Fine, just whatever.
Listen, everyone, it feels like the Giants are having this absolute season from hell. Got the same record as the Chiefs and the Bills. The Giants live.
They're better than the
They're
Bengals.
not done yet. Yep, better than the
They got
Bengals.
more wins than the Bengals. So. Yeah, it was looking like, oh God, their season's over. Because again, if they were 0-2 heading into San Francisco, we talked about this Sunday morning on Fantasy Football Pregame, that this was a must-win for the Giants, and they ultimately did. Daniel Jones, is, as we head into Monday Night Football, the number 1 quarterback in fantasy, 9 for 59 and a touchdown. That's, to me, the most exciting thing is, again, why can't I speak English? The continuation of the use of his legs, that it is a viable thing. It's not all scrambles. They are designed runs. It is a part of their offense here as well. Jalen Hyatt makes a big catch. Isaiah Hodgins catches the touchdown. Waller was obviously involved. Doesn't feel like you can trust it other than Daniel Jones, who I think continues to be a viable low-end QB1 moving forward, even against the Niners. If Barkley's out, like it's Darren Waller and that's it. I don't think you feel great about any offensive player here because, again, they do sort of spread it around.
Yep, absolutely. And, I mean, there were some deceiving lines from rookie wide receivers. And, Jalen Hyatt gets 89 yards, but it's on 2 catches, and there's a 58-yarder in there. Marvin Mims, the same thing. That stuff is not going to be sustainable.
Wait, Marvin Mims ran 5 routes.
Yes.
I mean, again, I love Marvin Mims.
Just 5 more than me and Connor.
And they should use him more, but, forgetting the numbers, he ran 5 routes.
Yep. Daniel Jones reminds me of Kirk Cousins when he was wearing that jersey, except with rushing ability as well, where he is very competent and he can fill it up in garbage time.
Yeah. You like that.
Our last game here, the Niners traveled to Los Angeles to play the Rams in a game that ended up a little closer. The funny field goal at the end of this game, talk about a bad beat, Jay. But think the story from a fantasy
Or a great beat. It depends on which way you
Yeah.
bet.
Yeah, it depends
Well,
which
you're going
way.
to get the best of the number.
That's-
It's
Yeah.
7.5 and 7.
That's right. The story of this game, though, from a fantasy perspective, is definitely the skill players of the Rams, despite them losing this game, Barry. I mean, Kyron Williams, big game, most notably through the pass game, and Puka Nacua was targeted 20 times in this game. 20 times.
Is Cooper
15
Kupp going to get
catches.
back on the field?
I tell my 11-year-old daughters, I said, listen, I said, when you're ready to date, you find yourself somebody that looks at you the way Matthew Stafford looks at Puka Nacua. And then they're like, Dad, why are you talking weird again? And then they go off and get on TikTok or something like that. I'm really connecting with my daughters these days. But maybe I should choose something other than Puka Nacua. But the fact of the matter is like the target share is unbelievable. The most catches by any wide receiver after his first 2 career games in NFL history. Like Puka Nacua is literally making NFL history. He's got 35 targets through 2 games. The second most is Justin Jefferson with 25 targets. Not only is he the most targets of any wide receiver in the league, but he's like 10 more than number 2. Like, it's just insane. Through week 2, he had a 38.5% target share. Like, it's unbelievable. And by the way, I just want to say this. I'm not sitting here telling you that I thought any of this would happen, because I didn't, obviously. I didn't think any of this would happen, that he would, set an NFL record for targets or anything like this. But if you don't have him on your team, you have no one to blame but yourself. Roll the tape. I'll just say that, my friend and former colleague, Jim Nagy, who would do some stuff occasionally for us over at ESPN. Of course, Jim runs the Senior Bowl, does a great job there. Jim's an avid fantasy player, and he told me that, and he looks at all these kids coming out. He just told me he thinks Puka's special. And for whatever it's worth, he drafted Puka to his fantasy team. So that's a guy that I think is really interesting to sort of keep an eye on as the season goes on.
For the record, I was at that Senior Bowl week, and he's gotten more targets in 2 weeks of NFL play than practices at the Senior Bowl.
Right. I mean,
This is truly unbelievable.
it is truly unbelievable. But again, obviously, when I said keep an eye on him, I meant pick him up and stash him, because it's going to be the first 2 weeks are going to be awesome.
You
That
begged
was
us not
September
to show
7th.
that.
For the record.
Yeah, we're on the pre-show call. You're like, please don't show that. I want to be really humble.
I want to be humble.
I don't want to
wanna-
remind people that they should have already gotten them 2 weeks
Right.
ago.
I don't want to bring up that I brought
Yeah.
it up on September 7th before any of the games had been
They
played.
surprised us and played
right.
it anyway.
And, but whatever. They played it anyway. Steven D'Agostino. So embarrassing.
Yeah, I know.
I didn't
Yeah.
want a victory lap, because you know me. I'm always about the work. I'm never about victory lapping. I'm always about the work. Always just about grinding.
You definitely didn't make me do a victory lap for you when you were in Kansas City. You couldn't do it
Literally
yourself.
around the desk.
Definitely didn't do that. I'm definitely not wearing a Commander's jersey now.
The thing with Puka, this
no.
is completely sustainable. It's this
100%
insane target share. He's that good. I watched every second of this game because I was trying to get my Christian McCaffrey bet home.
Yeah.
And Matthew Stafford looks unbelievable at the moment, and they are getting protection as well. And Tutu Atwell as well. I don't know how he became so good all of a sudden, but he was fantastic. I think his role will recede when Kupp comes back, but they're going to need multiple guys. And if Stafford keeps playing this well and is healthy, he can support 2 wide receivers, and it's going to be Kupp and it's going to be Nacua.
Yeah, 100%. Like, is Nakua's value at an all-time high? Of course it is. When Kupp comes back in week 5, we expect Nakua's target share to go down, but you're not going to get fair value for Puka Nacua. Like, you just can't. Like, so I'm literally in a group chat in one of my leagues, and one of the guys said, I will accept Justin Jefferson for Puka Nacua. And literally, that's it.
Yeah.
I'd rather have Puka Nacua than like T. Higgins or Garrett Wilson
I mean,
going
it's
the rest of the way.
Well, Garrett Wilson for sure. T. Higgins, I'm borderline there, but it is like. Anyway, the point of the matter is that all of us think this is much more legit than not, even when Cooper Kupp comes back. If you do have Puka Nacua, if you did listen to the show on September 7th and that name rang a bell, you can thank me and Jim Nagy, actually. Thank you, Jim. Got to give him credit there as well. The other thing that I think is really interesting about this game, very quickly, is the Cam Akers saga. We talked about this on Fantasy pregame, but it's just they love him. He's getting shared. Like last year, they hated him. He's a healthy scratch. Then they're going to trade him. Then all of a sudden he gets all the work. And then this year all is good. And he's going to be the guy. He was running with the ones in the preseason. And then he's backseat to Kyron Williams in week 1. And then he's a healthy scratch in week 2. And now reports are this morning that they're actively trying to trade him.
Again.
Good luck with that.
Again.
Good luck trying to that. But the fact that Cam Akers, I think, is useless until he finds his way onto another NFL team. Kyron Williams, completely legitimate. He looked great in what is, I think, the toughest matchup that he'll have this year. Here's our upcoming schedule. They play the Bengals Monday Night Football, as we said, at Indy, home to Philly, home to Arizona. So tough matchups, but not as bad as San Francisco. Kyren Williams is a real deal. He's the running back, too, as we head into Monday Night Football. Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBCSports.com and RotoWorld.com, and I want to thank you so much for watching whatever it is you just watched, or if nothing else, being too lazy to click out of the autoplay after this video started, after whatever it is you actually wanted to watch finished. But now that you're here, I'd like to take a moment here to ask you respectfully now, okay? I'm asking you respectfully to subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel. You'll get the latest RotoWorld fantasy news headlines, all sorts of great shows, including my own Fantasy Football Happy Hour. So go subscribe now. Again, I'm asking respectfully.